Hi friends, today I'm going to play with, let's see how we do, a little simple birdie. I've painted something similar like this in the past, but I wanted to do it again for you. The colors I'm going to be using, let me pull out my palette here, are going to be, actually I think I'm just going to use maybe a Payne's gray and a cobalt blue. I might start with a light sky blue. So I've got my, excuse me, knocking things all over here. I've got my Paul Rubens My Lang palette, you know, is my favorite, by the way. I'll just give it a little spritz here. And then I've got my Meeden palette, which I know a lot of you have that. Really fun. I like it because it's small. I've got my Artisto pads. Gosh, I actually need more of these right now. I'm kind of going through old ones looking for blank pages, but this is those wonderful 140-pound cold press paper that I use. You can tear them out. As you see here, I have a date on the front. I kind of journal library these by seasons, by principles, and then I can always reflect back on them. I love them, and I know you guys are enjoying them as well. What I'm going to do, this is just going to be made with brush strokes. So I've been seeing these fun little beautiful bluebirds around here, so I think that's going to be kind of what I'm going for. They very much are this beautiful cobalt blue. So I'm just going to put, look at that blue. Isn't that gorgeous? It's kind of amazing how bright they are. So we've got that color, and then I've got some of that light sky blue. By the way, I've also got a wash and rinse. And I don't have my brush today. I'm actually using a Princeton Velvet Touch Round 8, but any round brush is just fine. I love the Princeton. I also love my brushes, but I used them over the weekend for a workshop, and they're still in my bag. So I've got kind of a bright and then a little bit more powdery blue. So this is the fresh blue. This is the cobalt blue. So what I'm going to do first is lay down a little bit of a wash. I'm going to use, let me find my big old bad boy. 16 here. Oh, here it is. There we go. So this is my big old bad boy, 16 round. Love her. And I'm going to put kind of a wash down in the background. I think will be really pretty. So I use a little bit more water when I'm doing these background washes. So I'm going to, I always like to kind of spread mine out kind of in that type of direction. So I go in on wet on dry, and then I just start adding in water, kind of pulling it around, maybe pick up a little bit more. And that's about all I'm going to do. You could go in and add in some little things like that. You could tilt your paper and make it interesting like that, but that's about what I'm going to do with mine. Okay, so I'm going to rinse that brush and then give this just a shot so it will dry. Okay, so we've got this nice light washy background. I'm going to now take my 8 Velvet Touch and I'm going to dip it into, I want to start with my lightest value, meaning a mix here of about 50 pigment, 50 water. And then when I bring up my brush, I'm going to add in just a touch of that cobalt. Tap, 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 because you want to get that excess water off. And I'm going to bring my brush kind of sideways because I want to take advantage of the width of that brush and the belly. I hold my brush down here by the ferrule. It gives me a little bit more control. If you're looking to kind of practice really loose painting, you can always hold back here, let the brush dance around, but I just tend to hold it right up in here. I'm going to start with point and kind of to the side. Now it's not showing up a lot, so let's go into that cobalt blue. There we go. And creating kind of this, gosh, what shape is that? I don't know why, it reminds me of like a bullet, something like that. I think is just fine. And then out of the bottom, I'm going to go into, let's play with the Prussian blue. Ooh, yeah, look at that. And I'm just going to go in and kind of wet before this dries too much. I'm also going to create some little feathers sticking out. And those are just little flicks. So let me grab a tiny bit more water, a little bit more of that Prussian blue. I want to get that in here and kind of let it move around. There we go. Ooh, look at the beautiful tail that created. And isn't that nice with the wash behind it? So the next thing I want to do, I'm going to rinse my brush real quick because I've got that dark Prussian blue on there, and grab some of that cobalt. And I'm going to go in and just create the little crown on the top of his head. So side of my brush, and then bring it around and kind of tuck it in right there. I'll end up putting his eyeball right there. I know that looks kind of funky, but hold tight here. It's gonna look better. So I'm just kind of shaping it out there, adding in some of that dark blue, like that. Rinse my brush. And now I'm going to go in, I'm going to grab, by the way, I'm going to show you, this is a sneak peek of a little brush that I have some tape on it. Sorry about that. I had these marked. This is actually a sneak peek at my, I'm using Payne's Gray, by the way, right now, at my subscription box. Look at this fun little, this is a 2 round. And I'm just going to go in number 1 and put in his little beak, point, press, and let that kind of come in. But I want to round out his bottom of his little neck. So I'm just making like a half moon type thing there. And maybe some more. Maybe we've got a little splotch right there. And going around his eye, I'm going to pick up some more of that. Rinse my brush because I want to soften this up a bit, kind of like that. And then what I'm going to do is take my 8 round again, and I am working fast here because I want to work with all of this while it's dry. I mean, wet still. So a little bit more water there. Tap, tap, tap. And now we're going to come out with these fun, his wings. So I'll start here and just flick out. Now I am doing all of this just kind of by the seat of my pants. So it's, you know, going to be very loose. Let's get some of that darker in there and kind of layer some of that. Want his head to come down about like that. So dipping into some more of that dark blue and just pulling it out. But I don't want to get too detail-y here. So I'm even loving that. There we go. Rinse my brush and kind of pull some of that out. Even look at that, a dry brush is perfect here. So placing your brush on its side. Now let's come out on the other side with his wing. So we're gonna do kind of the same thing here, except for I'm kind of working opposite, and I am not good at the left-handed stuff, guys. So I'm gonna come in with the side of my brush again, maybe some, you can lay your brush sideways and pull some of that out like that. Isn't that fun? So that is definitely a dry brush. Let me pick up some of that Payne's Gray, and I wanna go in and just add in some little touches here. Maybe here, we've got a little bit of wings sticking out. Like that. Oh my gosh, isn't that fun? Up here too. I'm gonna go back into that dark and start kind of adding in, number one, his eye. So his eye is gonna be very dark. And look at how fun. This is just plain, and this is what I really encourage you to do. Go in there and play with your brush strokes. Go in there and just create shapes. Now this is a little bit wet, so I'm going to tap my brush, tap, 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 and start forming maybe some little, let's use our smaller brush. We could have even went in here and scraped some of those in using a damp brush like that. And we can create some really washy little feathers there. And some more, actually, you know what would be really fun? We could scrape in, let's do that, to define some of those feathers. So just take a credit card or anything you have there, and we'll just scrape in a few. Yeah, look at that. Ooh. So this is, you know, really the value in playing, is you do things and some things are gonna work, some things are not. Doesn't matter, right? Because we're just playing here. But look at how fun. So I'm gonna give this just a tiny shot because I'm gonna grab some of that black real quick, or Payne's Gray, and just got one of my own hairs there. I think this might have worked better with, let's get a stylus. There we go. Just get a stylus and kind of, because I want really fine little hairs. There we go. So he's got some fun, fine little hairs there on his head, and I'm about done. Let's see, let's use, what did I want to do? I guess that was it. I could, oh, his eye. So I'm gonna give it a quick shot. And once that's dry, I can go in there with my small brush, and we'll just add in that Payne's Gray. Hopefully that's dry enough. I'm just going to do his eye. And you know, if this is too small, just use a, you can use a pen. That is perfectly fine. There we go. Got his little beak, so I think I'm about done. I almost want to keep playing, but I think I'm going to leave it pretty simplified like that. I hope you guys give this a try, you know, follow through here, play, use that dry brush, and just really experiment and see what you can come up with, because that's really how I do everything. I kind of just play and, you know, layers do layers and glazes, you can always get darker. So you can add in some things like that. If you want to soften those edges, which I get a lot of you asking, they say, I have these hard edges. Just take a damp brush and go right along the edge there, and that will soften those edges. All right, everybody, I hope that was kind of fun. And you give this a try. Again, just play, have fun. And I will see you all soon. All right. Happy painting.